All right, here we go. Who remembers the very last thing I said to you before you went to lunch?
Check it.
Be back at 12:20.
Well, I mean, other than that.
Check the
Check answers.
Girls, you need to be in your seat and ready to go at 12:20. You are late.
I'm ready to go.
So, you will each bring me a box of Kleenex for being late.
It was 12:20.
So, who are you? Belle? No, what's my son? Yes, you are. So, Belle full-size non-generic. Bring it tomorrow to get your attention. Here we go. 2, the square root of x plus 1 equals 3. The very last thing I said to you before you left was about math was you have to check your answers. So we did a problem and we checked our answers. All right, now we're going to do this problem. How do we start this? Well,
square.
okay, I've heard 2 different answers and they're both exactly right. You can divide both sides by 2. That makes sense. Divide, get rid of that number right there. Geechee said square both sides, and you can do that, but you have to square that also, don't forget. So since I've already done the division, I'll just do it this way. Now I'll square. We're going to end up in exactly the same place, Geechee. So I end up with x plus 1 equal to, okay, what do I get when I square this fraction? Oh, you know how to do that. How do you square a fraction?
9 over 4.
It'd be 9 over 4. You square the top and you square the bottom, right? Now, subtract 1 from both sides. Now, when I subtract 1, I've done this a long time, so I just automatically think 4/4. Get a common denominator. You could get your calculator out and do 9/4 minus 1. And I get 5/4, you'll get 1.25. It doesn't make any difference. Now, I need to check my answer. All right? Always, when I do this, when I square both sides, I check my answer. So, my answer was 5/4 or 1.25, however you did it. So I'll put in 1.25 plus 1 right here. And then I'm going to square root that and times it by 2. And lo and behold, what happened when I did all that? What did it equal? Anybody do it with me? It equals 3. So when I put in 1.25 here, it ended up being 3. So that checked out, so there's my answer. Now you're thinking, Mrs. Ford, why are you making me check these answers? It's just more time, I'm busy. You have to check your answers. Next question. This one is a little bit tricky, because when you told me to square both sides, literally that's what you have to do. You have to square the whole side. You don't square the individual pieces. You square the whole side. Which means, what's going to happen here? I'm squaring the whole side. So what am I going to have to do here? Kimmel? Honey, sit up. You look like you're like going to sleep. X plus 1 squared. You have to FOIL it. So that's going to be x plus 1 times x plus 1. All right, so here we go. Let's see if we can FOIL that. First outside, inside last. X squared plus x plus x plus 1. Does that look okay to everybody in the foiling? Now what do you want to do?
Combine like terms.
Combine like terms. And I'm gonna go ahead and move the 5 and the X over. Bless you. So 0 equals X squared plus, okay, how many X's do I have? 3? I went ahead and moved my 5 and my X over to the other side because I need a 0 there. And what have I got? A quadratic equation. How do you want to solve that?
Quadratic formula.
You could complete the square. You could also use the quadratic formula. This particular one actually factors, so you could use any option you wanted. Now, the problem, Marissa, with completing the square, and it's perfectly okay, it'll work out. But remember, you have to take half of 3. So that's going to be a fraction right off the bat, right? So I probably wouldn't complete the square on this one. It does factor, so I'll go ahead and factor it. But if you don't want to factor, you don't have to. If you don't want to factor, just go ahead and use your quadratic formula. Ichi?
What are the requirements to complete the square? Like for an equation? What is
Okay, there are really no requirements except this number here has to be a 1.
Okay.
And if it's not a 1, you divide out. We did a couple examples like that.
Okay.
So I get x equal to -4 or 1. Now I'm going to go back to my original problem. Not one of the steps, but back to the very original problem, the one that's written on the paper. And I'm going to plug in -4. I'm going to check this answer. So I'll have 5 minus -4 and -4 plus 1. I put in -4. I'm checking it. What does this equal? The square root of 9, which is 3. What does this equal? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That didn't work. This is what we call, we didn't make any mistakes. You were perfect on this problem. But that answer simply won't work. It's called an extraneous root. That is your first big vocabulary word, extraneous root. What is an extraneous root? It is an answer that you go through and find. You haven't made any mistakes. You've done it exactly right, but it simply doesn't check. Well, let's check the other one and see if it works. Here's our problem. And now we're going to plug in 1. Okay, what's this? Square root of 4, which is 2, equals 2. Okay, that one works. So the only answer to this problem is 1. Now earlier, one of the kids said, no, Mrs. Ford, if one doesn't work, will the other one automatically work? No. Sometimes neither of them work. Sometimes they both work. You just have to check. There's like no rule. You just have to check every time. Okay? Well, there's one more, I think, isn't there? How can you do this one on your own with your partner? Do you think you can tackle this? It's kind of a big one. It looks a little scary.
Oh, yeah.
But you think you can handle it? Yep. Go for it. I have confidence in you. See if you can figure out what to do. Consult your neighbor if you need to.
I'd probably square everything first to get rid of that square root. The numbers is? 6. Oh, it's D. when you get rid of the square root, it becomes whatever times that,
It just
or
becomes,
plus.
Okay, did you subtract 5?
I squared everything first.
You can't.
Oh, you can't?
You can't. You have to subtract the 5. I hope, did everybody start by subtracting the 5?
Yeah.
Forgot
Okay.
about the 5.
Did you go ahead and divide by the 2? That makes it a little easier. I think you don't have to do that. Then you squared both sides. So far, so good, peeps? And then you just got 4. Now, did anybody check it back in the original? And what happens? It doesn't work. When you put 4 in here, you get 1 times 2 plus 5. That's not 3, right? So what's the answer to this question? No solution. You can use the math symbol for that if you want, the empty set symbol. Or you can write out the words, no solution.
You get it.
No, extraneous root, this is an extraneous root, but that is not the answer. The answer is no solution. There is no answer.
So it's no way. Then it's no solution.
Yep. All right, we got it? When you do the P5, if you look at your half sheet,
Yeah.
if you look at your half sheet of paper, kids, that has your assignments on it, the P5 assignment, doesn't it say something about an extra practice sheet? That is the last page of your note sheet packet. I attached it to your notes. So the very last page is the extra practice. And it is problems like we've been doing. Okay? That's where that is. We, though, need to do P6 now. So, switching gears, moving to P6.
Football and flying stuff, bridge. It's with the rock and all the football players.
I am not even going to tell you how to do this problem. You're going to tell me what the answer is. This is 1A. I am adding complex numbers. Kelly Berry, what do you think the answer to 1A in P6 is? This is the question. What do you think the answer would be? Just take a wild guess.
7I.
That's a good wild guess. But these don't have eyes. Well, I'm not sure where you got 2 minus I, but look. You got 4 numbers up here, right? Some of them are just plain numbers, and some of them have eyes attached to them. It's exactly the same as if you had a situation like this, Kelly. What would you do if you had some numbers and some ends in your problem? What would you do? Exactly. So look at your problem. What are the like terms you're going to add together?
3 and 2, I got 5.
So 3 and 2 is going to give you 5.
Yep.
And then I and negative 4i is going to give you
Negative 3I.
negative 3i. It's exactly the same as with a variable. I is like a variable. So everybody okay with that? We're going to collect like terms. All right, now the next one, we're going to do the same thing, except that's a minus. Now, what does a minus do to all the things that follow it? Changes them. So that's going to be minus 6 minus I. Remember, you gotta distribute the negative all the way through. So now we're right back to where we were with Kelly's problem. So we're gonna collect like terms. And Bryn, what do we end up with?
-2 plus 2.
Mm-hmm.
So let's use 3i, and then it's minus 1 for those I.
Does it matter if you put the I at the beginning
No. Normally it goes at the end, but it doesn't make any difference in terms of accuracy. Now I'm multiplying. I'm going to multiply these two numbers together. Any ideas how we might do that? Luke, you got a thought?
Distribute.
Well, thank you, Luke's helpers. Yes, we call it foiling. We're going to foil it, right? That's all. It's two parentheses. We're going to foil. So here we go. First, outside, inside, and last. Now be careful with that last. We get -6, and then I squared, because we're timesing an I times an I, right? Now tell me what you remember about I squared. It's -1. I was just bragging to Mr. Miller how you guys remembered a lot of good stuff. So I squared is -1. If you forgot that, memorize it. I squared is -1. Every time I see an I squared, I'm going to scratch it out and replace it with -1. So what's this then?
6.
That's a +6. Added to my 12 would be 18. Now what about these two? -1i. And you can put the 1 in or leave the 1 out. -I, -1i. All right, now for the biggie. Does anyone recall what we do when we... What's that?
Sorry.
Okay. Luke, if you're doing something, I want you to stop it. And Marissa, I want you to face forward, okay? Okay. All right. Now, what do? Anybody remember? I multiply by something. Do you remember what I multiply by?
It's 6 plus I.
6 plus I. Very good. Does anybody, okay, so this denominator was 6 minus I. He said I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 6 plus I. Now we'll see why we do that in a minute. But this has a special name. Does anybody happen to remember it?
Reciprocals.
No, although that's a good guess.
Conjugate?
What?
The conjugate?
The conjugate. It's called the conjugate. It's called the conjugate. We multiply top and bottom by the conjugate. What would be the conjugate of this number right here? 4 minus 3i? You just change that sign right there to get the conjugate. And in a division problem, when you have a division, you multiply top and bottom by the conjugate of the bottom. Now look, we have 2 foils to do. So here we go. I'm going to foil. On top, 30 plus 5i plus 18i plus 3i squared. On the bottom, 36 plus 6i minus 6i minus I squared. This is why you do the conjugate. What happens to those? They're gone. What do we know about I squared? It's -1. So we have -1, which is 1 plus 36 is 37. So now we started out with an I in the bottom, but now we have no I in the bottom. We got rid of it by using the conjugate. Now what's on top? Well, what's this? Be careful. What's that? That's -3. I squared is -1, so this is -3. So that's 27 plus 23. I. You guys are awfully sleepy after lunch. I'm not sure I like this. Have some diet ginger ale. Let's put some. Yeah. All right. Next, we have a couple of little problems to do. I think you'll remember how to do them. Square root of -81. What does that equal? 9i. Now, the reason that it's 9i, and most of you are going to go straight from here to here, and that's totally fine. But if that doesn't quite make sense to you, remember when you have the square root of a negative, that's an I. We talked about it earlier. So we take the I out, then we have the square root of 81, which is 9. When you do problem F, you must do it exactly the same way. So forget this is here. What's that equal? 2i? Now, forget this is here. What's that equal? And they are being multiplied. Do not multiply them until you take care of the I. You got to do I first. Now when you multiply them, what do you get? Not 6i. 6i squared. And what is 6i squared?
-6.
-6. Okay, so when you see something like -√12, what's the first thing you're going to do with it? Take out the I. And then do whatever else you want to do. In this case, that would be 2√3. Normally we write that 2i√3, but this is okay too. It doesn't make any difference. Okay? All right. Next, for some reason these are always so confusing, and they're really easy. Let's see if you can sort it out. Your job is to tell me what is X and what is Y. It is the easiest, most obvious thing, but it looks so confusing. X equals 3 and Y equals 2. That's the only way these numbers are going to be equal, kids, is if you put a 3 here and a 2 here. Would it make any sense to say 3 plus 2i equals 4 plus 7i? Would it make any sense for X to be 4 and Y to be 7? No. The only way that will make sense is if X is 3 and Y is 2. They have to match up exactly. So what about the next one? 3 minus yi equals X plus 7i. Now, what does X have to be? It's got to be 3. Now, what about Y? Be careful. What does Y have to equal? -7. Because -y has to be 7. So Y would be, -7. Sit up. Good boy. Keep your eyes open. All right. Next, we've got some just general reviewy type stuff here for this section. So what I think we'll do is have two people come, and you can bring a partner. So let's have a couple people come up and do 3A and 3B on the board. And you can do it any way you want. They are quadratic equations, so you can factor, you can complete the square, or you could use the formula. So who will come up with a friend? You may bring a friend. Come on up. Who will do them? Oh, nice. Maybe call on you, it's not as much fun. Finn'll go, look at Finn, he can't wait, come on Finn. Oh, way to be a friend. Get up there, Ted, get up there, come on. We're not gonna have
You got this tag.
Wow, alright, now you got me Scotto.
You got this tag.
Alright, but let's do 3. Come on, Ty.
Got the 30 over there.
Joey, pick a friend. Go to the board, you don't have a problem. You can do it.
Do it for Rosewood.
Remember, you can do it however you want, you get to pick. Now, what should the rest of you be doing? Doing them. It doesn't factor, speaking.
Come on, baby girl.
Problem A does not factor, so don't even try it. So boys, I told you it doesn't factor, so now you're either gonna complete the square or you should factor. It does not factor.
Oh, use a square.
Did I hear her name?
Yeah, we do.
You did? Say it? Alright, you know what's doing.
Do you want to stab that? Oh, yeah, no.
No,
Write your
Joker?
problem down.
What?
Let's start with that. That would be a good start.
where's her
You
name?
do the B.
No, she got it. Huh?
Okay, now honey, what happens when you multiply two times? This doesn't factor,
But she
so
was really
pick
over
up
there. She was getting
It does not
Where is
factor.
it?
beverages.
Yeah, now you go over this. Not
After
for
you.
this problem, it works for some, but not this one.
Babysit. I'll be sick. I need to go home.
Do you really?
You
I'm
would
supposed to
You
go
lost
get
your Florida receipt right now.
It's game week. It's game week.
Yeah,
You'd pull it?
I would. My back's hurting.
Remember, Ted, that first part of that is,
Oh, 4 squared,
Yeah.
16.
you do that.
Come on.
Yeah, this one's factor. But you have, what, you have to, here and here is when you have to sell it.
You know that feeling
You
when
got
all you
some
have to do is
non-connect
throw it
brand.
and you'll be fine?
Clean the bit.
What times what makes seven? 1 and 7.
Yes.
Right, figure. 7 and 2. And 1 here. So would be minus, because you have to make it plus, right? Boil that out and see if you got it right. Square root of 8 actually does break down. Does anybody remember how the square root of 8 breaks down? 2 root 2, because it's the square root of 4 and 2. So it does break down. Did that boil out right, girls? You trying to get to the
Oh, she was typing.
So you set each of your factors.
I'll get that one in the back.
This is one. I have a question. Yep. For this bottom one, if it's already -4 without being -4 again, how could I just do 3?
Yeah, it's gonna make 13.
Okay.
Which one are you doing?
I'm just doing this one last year.
Oh, okay. Okay, we're going to talk about both of these problems real quick. letter at 3A. I told the boys that doesn't factor, it doesn't factor. If you tried to factor it, I want you to take the factors that you got, whatever factors you came up with, and like for example, he had, I think x plus 2 and x plus 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
If you have factors, I want you to check them. Foil it out. Look what happens when I foil this, kids. What's wrong with it? I have my x squared. I have my 4x, but what? I got a 4 on the end and I'm only supposed to have a 2. This isn't right for that problem. So if you tried to factor it, I'm telling you, you are wrong, but I want you to get that you're wrong by foiling it out and seeing, oh shoot, when I foil it, I don't get that. That doesn't factor. So they use the quadratic formula. Will the quadratic formula always work? Oh, yes. The quadratic formula will always work. I am sorry if I led you astray at some point. The quadratic formula will always work. Always. So if you don't learn any other method, the quadratic formula will solve every question. Okay? Now, I want to talk about their final answer though. I'm not happy with it. Now, wait a minute. I'm not satisfied with it. I'm delighted that they got this far. But what about this has me not quite at the A+. I'm at the A- stage. How am I going to get to the A+ stage?
Simplify the 2 and the 4.
Okay, now no. If you're going to simplify, you have to simplify all 3 places.
Yes.
If you're going to simplify, you got to simplify here, here, and here. So you can take a 2 out and cancel it. So you'd have -2 plus or minus root 2 over 1, which you don't even need to write that over 1. Now, someone in this class is going to get a problem that looks like this. And they're going to cancel a 3 out, and I'm going to mark it wrong. Because in order to cancel, you have to be able to do it in all 3 places. Okay? Now, this one actually did factor, so they factored it. Now, this is their check to make sure they got it right, and they did. If you're going to factor, check it and make sure you got it right. So they set both factors equal to 0 and so on. Now, they didn't check their answers. They don't have to. What is the only kind of problem where we have to check our answers? When we square both sides. That's when you check your answers. Okay? You should have completed up through P5, and you can do you can do most of P6 at this point. So don't be waiting. Get that done. We're going to be having a test next week sometime. Joy? No, that is due when we start reviewing. So I will tell you what some of those are. Next week, do you meet tomorrow? Probably be the second day after. So it won't be the next week, it'll probably be the next week.